Hey everyone, it's Ryan with Sacramento Appraisal Blog, and let's talk about the real estate market. And I know it almost sounds insensitive to be talking about real estate numbers in the midst of a pandemic, right? There's way more important things in life, and I totally agree. And I would say pay attention to your family and to life, but if you're interested in the real estate market and stats for what to watch in coming time, for possibilities of what the market might do, then that's why we're having this conversation. Okay, I've reached out on social platforms and said, hey, do you guys want to be having this? I've canceled my presentations in March and April, and this is going to take the place. People said, yes, we want you to share about the market. So here we are. So my goal here is to dive in to talk about where we're at in 2020, and then to highlight some of the uncertainty, some things to really watch. So overall, I would say that when we look at trends, the market has been really aggressive this year in light of low mortgage rates. I don't think anyone expected the market in 2020 to be doing what it's been doing. Okay, it's felt extremely competitive, and we've almost seen the market rebound. Okay, but here we are though in a stage of what I would say is peak uncertainty right now. Okay, I'm taking that phrase from Jonathan Miller, and I think it perfectly captures the sentiment right now in the housing market, in the economy, in the financial markets, and really in life. When we look out and we're reading social media, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of panic, and I think rightly so as people wonder about the future. Okay, but the reality is, in terms of real estate, the market hasn't stopped. And I want to show you that specifically and give some ideas today. Okay, but to start us out, I want us to remember that the market is like a pregnancy test. And I know this might seem strange to say, but here's what I mean. You can technically be pregnant, but an over-the-counter test, it won't tell you that for a couple of weeks. And so you're 100% fully pregnant, but that doesn't show up in the stats for a couple weeks down the road. And the same thing happens in real estate when a market changes. The change might be happening, but you don't see the change yet in the sales stats for sometimes months. Okay. And so right now, where the temptation is to look at January and February data and say, wow, the market has been on fire, but that won't tell us about what's happening now. What we have to do now is to look at the pendings and the listings, and eventually we'll get sales stats and have a better idea of what the market's doing over the next few months. Okay, that's a very fair way to look at it. But let's look at some specific trends. Multiple offers in the Sacramento region have been up. Okay, here's February. It was 27% higher than last year at the same time. There's a normal rhythm in the market where we see more multiple offers in the spring each year and then less during the summer. Okay, so we've had a pretty aggressive market so far. All right, here's the median price in the Sacramento region since 2014. You can see prices have gone up, but there's this very cyclical trend where the market goes up and then it goes down every year like clockwork. There's this seasonal rhythm. And right now, what we've been seeing is that the market's starting to increase again. All right, now in the region and in most counties, prices aren't back to where they were during the height of summer yet. But in Sacramento County, the prices definitely are. They've surpassed summer plus a couple percent. And so it's been a more aggressive market, I would say, in Sacramento County. I think by and large part because prices are a little lower there. Okay, some fresh stats. Here's all of 2020. The type of financing that's been used January through March 15th. Okay, 14.3% of sales have been cash, almost 16% of sales have been FHA, 5% VA, and conventional about 61%. Okay, there's a few other percent in there for other types of loans, but it's important to watch and just to understand what type of financing are buyers using, and sometimes that's a clue into what type of buyers are in the market. Okay, who has incentive to sell and buy in any market? I think that's a big question we're asking today. Who would list their home right now? Who is going to shop for a home? All right, here's cash sales in the region since 2009, sort of peaked out in 2013, and it's been very modest lately. Now, a lot of investors are using conventional financing, so this is uh, not the best stat in the world, but it's not what it was back in the day. Cash isn't dominating everything. All right. Here's VA in the region, and it used to only be 2% of the market in 2009, and now it's closer to 6%. This has been a growing trend. Here's FHA since 2009, and it's down from its peak but I think most notably lately we've been seeing a rebound over the past year. So I'm anxious to see how this stat goes. Okay, now we're talking so much about a lack of affordability in the market, but there's still demand among first-time buyers. All right, people have been wanting to buy homes and get in the market. So speaking of affordability, here's average rent in Sacramento. According to Yardi Matrix, it's increased 69% over the past decade. Right now, this is really important because you can see that median household income has increased 43% over the past decade. Okay, so no wonder we're having conversations about affordability, and no wonder why there's been this sentiment in the market where people are going, man, I don't know if I want to buy, or I don't know if I can buy, okay, or I'm struggling. All right, so something to watch. The number of REOs in Sacramento County, 1.4%. Okay, last year we've pretty much bottomed out. Okay, a lot of people look at everything happening with coronavirus, with the economy, and they're thinking we're going to have more REOs in the future. And I would say that that's probably a true statement no matter what, because there's basically no place to go up. But obviously, if people begin to lose jobs and the economy tanks, then yeah, absolutely, we can see this. But this wouldn't be something that we would see probably for quite some time. It takes a while for properties, or it would take a while for properties right now that are going to enter the foreclosure process to actually go through the foreclosure process and then hit the market. Okay, 0.3% of all sales last year were short sales. This market hardly even exists. All right, let's talk about sales volume. This is one of the most important things to look at. All right, I know in real estate, we're often fixated on prices. Okay, we're infatuated. What are prices doing? You know the question I never get asked when I visit real estate offices or when I'm giving presentations anywhere? Hey Ryan, tell me about sales volume. What is sales volume doing? Because our tendency is to only look at prices, but I would suggest in a market like today that it's going to be more important to watch what is happening with volume. Are buyers putting their foot on the gas pedal? Are they buying properties? Are they getting into contract? Are deals getting done or not? Because if deals aren't getting done, then that would be a sign that the market has begun to change. Okay, so here's what I mean. Here's the past year of sales, each respective year. There's 12 months of sales here. Now, over the past couple years, we've had a stride where there's been about 26,500 sales. But that's down from a real strong trend from 28,000 plus the three previous years. And so I would say that we've entered a new phase of volume where volume is clearly lower than where it was. Now, this is still on the normal side of, or on the lower side of normal. You can see from the previous years, but I would just say that we've clearly broken away from a trend that was, present and that was growing. And I think what happened in 2018, the market began to really change. Okay, mortgage rates shot up and then it shocked buyers. Okay, a lot of buyers backed off the market. All right. And so since then, we've seen a slump in sales volume. And I know some people would say, hey, there's been more new construction and that explains why sales volume's down lately. I'd go, no, new construction hasn't been that robust. All right. And so it's really the market reacting. I think buyers showing more hesitancy. That's been a bigger issue. Okay. Now, one issue we're struggling with, there's less listings, and that could play into this in the future why there's less sales. Here's a different way to look at it. Here's sales volume in dark blue every February in Sacramento County since 2009. And you can kind of see that lately, sales volume this year in February, it was kind of lackluster, even though the market was really competitive and aggressive. We haven't seen maybe an abnormal amount or a really high amount of sales volume lately. Okay. Now I'd say that lackluster, but kind of fairly normal though too. All right, here's the months of housing supply in the Sacramento region. You can see it's a lot lower than it was last year, but last year isn't a great frame of reference because the market got dull when mortgage rates shot up. Okay, what I'm looking at is the previous years. You can see the months of housing supply is actually fairly similar to where it was 2 years prior. But here's the thing, it's a little bit technical. It's important to realize that there's less listings and there's also less sales volume. Okay, so when we calculate the months of inventory, it actually looks similar on paper, but I think the bigger issue is that there's actually less listings hitting the market. Okay, so that's something to watch over time. But let's talk about prices. Acceleration and deceleration is the name of the game. When I look at the market, it's shifting. It almost feels like a teenager who's learning how to drive, and it's choppy, that it's going fast and then it's slowing down. And here's what I mean. So here's the median price in the Sacramento region since 2014, every single year, 12 months of data here. What do you notice about price change? It's clearly gone down. Okay, the market's been moving forward every year, but it's been moving forward at a slower rate. Okay, it hasn't declined, it just hasn't been increasing as fast. But here's the deal. Lately, we've begun to see this trend change. Because here's the past 90 days of sales in the Sacramento region for each respective year. And what do we notice about price change or price momentum? It's begun to see a difference. It's begun to accelerate. So I'd say here in the median price for annual stats, the market is clearly decelerated. Okay, there's no arguing against that. It's so obvious. But here we're seeing the past 90 days, the market is accelerating. Okay, and the monthly median price in the Sacramento region, here's February. Okay, you look and you go, okay, the market is accelerating again. And I think there's a clue in here because when it comes to coronavirus, when it comes to the future economy, potential recession, all that stuff, what we don't want to do is to hide out over annual data. If we just look at annual stats, it's going to tell a different story of the market. What we have to do is hone in and say, what's the market beginning to do right now? Not just the past 90 days or January, February, but we would say, what's the market doing right now with listings and with pendings, and then eventually with sales? Those are the real questions to ask. And so be careful about hiding under the umbrella of past data. So hopefully that makes sense. Here's a Freddie Mac price index. You can kind of see that the market for a while was hovering between about 8 and 9% price growth per year. Here's 2017 through 2020. But you can kind of see they're showing the same thing where momentum has begun to shift and we're seeing a greater percentage of price growth lately. A lot of markets across the country, your San Francisco and San Jose, Seattle, I mean, they're experiencing a similar dynamic. Not every market is the same though. Okay, so this is something to watch nationally. Here's pending contracts over the past 2 days. Or over the past weekend. Friday, February 13th through Sunday, excuse me, March 13th through March 15th. Now, this is an important date because my sense is that on the 12th of March, that was the day that the NBA canceled their season, the day that I think everyone and their mom canceled events. It was the day we found out that Tom Hanks had coronavirus. And that seems very trivial, all these things. But what happened is that it was sort of an inflection point where a lot of people began to realize this is very serious and it's something we need to pay attention to, and it's not something that we can minimize. And so it's really important from this point onward to focus on what is actually getting into contract now. So this past weekend, there were 178 pendings, and that's a pretty strong month. It's technically down from the weekend before at 210 pendings, but the weekend before was when rates were very aggressive. And so over time, I hope to be pulling these stats every week. I'll be honest, normally I pull pendings once a month, but I think the market's going to expect for me, and I want to put myself in there to show pendings hopefully by the week. Okay, so I want to point out though that the market hasn't stopped. Okay, there are a lot of examples of multiple offers this past weekend. In fact, 55% of these pendings, according to MLS stats, have more than one offer. All right, so it was a strong weekend, strong showing despite what's beginning to happen. Okay, and there were 249 new listings from Friday through Sunday. Okay, and so that's one thing we want to watch, the number of listings versus the number of pendings. Okay, and if that chasm grows over time, that'll only soften the market. All right. Um, Here's a tweet from my friend Erin Stump. She's a realtor with Coldwell Banker. And I think what she says maybe captures a sentiment out there. It says, despite rain and the current state of public health, I am presenting multiple four as of now offers to one of my sellers this afternoon. And for one of my buyers, I'm writing an offer for a listing that sounds like we'll have 10 plus offers. So there's that. And so the temptation is to look and go, the coronavirus is going to make the market plateau, it's going to decline, and those things might happen. We have a very serious situation in front of us, unprecedented, I would say. But at the same time, as of right now, the market hasn't stopped. Okay, here's one thing to watch is consumer confidence. I've been looking at themortgageconsole.com. I'll continue to post this link on my blog, but you can see in later February, beginning of March, consumer confidence has plunged. And that's not a surprise. I mean, how many of us are thinking, great, it sounds like a perfect day to go buy a new car. Let me go buy something new. All right. And so at some point, if consumers become, if the lack of confidence continues to grow, they could easily back off the housing market too. And so something for us to watch over time. If you don't follow Josh Brown on Twitter at Reformed Broker, he's a great follow. He's really hilarious. But here's something that he put out yesterday. He said, on the list of ridiculous things to be debating right now is whether or not we're in a recession. People are literally locked inside their homes. I don't think we need to wait for data. And so I wanted to share this, and it's a really gloomy thought, but it's sort of where we're at right now. And I think it highlights the reality that we might not have the data yet, but maybe we have the trend or the expectation of where things might head. All right. And so remember, during a recession, prices don't always decline in real estate, but we would likely expect sales volume to decline, the number of deals happening. All right. Things to watch right now that I'm paying attention to is the severity of outbreak because over the next couple weeks, if there's not a severe outbreak, then we can expect the less of a severe outcome for real estate. Okay, consumer behavior is absolutely something we have to watch, whether people are buying things, what they're doing, and frankly, they can't buy things right now, or can't buy, go to bars in California, or restaurants are closing. I mean, this is a very uncertain time. Governmental regulations, okay, we're going to see if maybe the stock market gets shut down, or if somehow the housing market enters a state of pause. Okay, sellers canceling is what we have to watch. That's going to be interesting. Some sellers wanting to cash out at the top. Okay, there's fear of the coronavirus in this pandemic, but I think a lot of people are struggling with the fear of what does the future market look like? And I want to cash out now because I don't want to be left at where I was the last time the housing market changed. And so I think a lot of people that's in their psyche. And so that's one reason why we might see more listings. Okay, the number of listings, as I mentioned, 250 this weekend. People have incentive to sell, and they have a lot of reasons, for that. Okay, price declines are something that we can watch for over time. We'll see where the market goes, but we got to realize in real estate, prices don't always just do the same thing. We're in our ninth year of upward growth, and at some point, we would expect for the market to possibly change. I was talking with a good friend this week, and he said maybe this will push us over the edge and sort of accelerate us to getting to the next real estate cycle. All right. Tenants being less cooperative. I know I would not want to have buyers walk through who might potentially be carrying sickness. That's for sure. Digital tours. I think in some senses we're going to see real estate morph or at least adapt or change in coming weeks or months, however long we need to, where there's going to be maybe less open houses and more people coming, setting up tours with the seller, agents taking more video. And so this will be interesting to watch. Hungry buyers. Okay, buyers have a fear of missing out. It is a very real thing. Okay, buyers aren't just scared about the future economy and stuff. They're scared of, I want to secure a low mortgage rate and I want to get into contract. And so despite I think reaching that moment of inflection this past week, we saw a pretty strong weekend of pendings in the Sacramento area, at least. Okay, worried owners, fear of decline. I mentioned that. Buyer and owner motivation. This is the thing to watch because whenever a market changes, it's easy to, I think, maybe pigeonhole people and say, this is exactly what sellers are going to do and exactly what buyers are going to do, but not everyone is coming in the same place. Okay, they're from the same place. Not everyone has this sense of, well, I'm not going to list or I'm not going to enter the market right now. People are thinking lots of different things. So if you work in real estate, I would identify who has incentive to sell and to buy right now. All right, that's the question. Okay, regardless of what prices are doing, and I would say even regardless of a pandemic, right? Buyers losing jobs and wages. This is a huge factor, sort of like Josh Brown's tweet. We have to consider what would the future market be like. Okay, if they do begin to lose jobs, then that's a big factor because then they can't qualify for mortgages. Remember, in 2012, prices bottomed out after massive declines. So many people couldn't qualify for a mortgage though because they had a short sale or foreclosure on their record, or they didn't have, you know, a great income at the time. Okay, and so even if mortgage rates go low, well, that might not be something that might not be the main driver for some people. Okay, investors looking for opportunity, they always are in every market. Credits from sellers, I think this would be a sign that sellers are aware that how volatile the market is and that they need to really listen to buyers right now. Okay, proper pricing is especially critical. I saw a friend from Seattle, Brady Gustafferson. Sorry, Brady, if I butchered your last name, but he talked about a deal that he saw where the seller and buyer were multiple hundreds of thousands apart. I think 300,000 apart, and as soon as this everything sort of hit the fan over the past 5 days or so, the seller came down and agreed with the buyer. And so I think that it just shows that we do have a market where we can expect sort of some of those things to happen. Price trends, we can expect possibly for the market to stall. Okay, it could be on hold, it could decline. I'm not hearing a lot of people thinking that it's going to increase. Although here's the thing, it's possible for sales volume to shrink and prices could still be robust because whoever's left over and is still buying, you could see upward price movement for a few months if these prices reflect February and early March. Okay, what will people do? Will we see price reductions? I mean, that's the thing we have to watch. Are there going to be more listings and more price reductions? Well, clearly prices would soften. All right. Um, let's see, and then an economic collapse. That's a very gloomy thing, but I think it's a reality on the radar of a lot of people. There's no sugarcoating this. The economy is in a very precarious place. And so I think that's why you see the Fed lowering the funds rate to 0%. Okay, to try to stimulate or at least help the economy limp along. All right. And remember, that's not the same thing as mortgage rates being 0%. Talk to your favorite loan officer. They'll explain that. An X factor for 2020 is mortgage rates. Here we are. We're extremely low right now. Right now, it might be a little bit higher than 3.29% because this was from about a week or so ago or 10 days. But mortgage rates will continue to drive some people to the market. Okay, will they be enough to offset, the fear of the economy and fear of health and this pandemic? Well, only time will tell. We don't know the answer to that question. Anyone who says they do, well, they better have a crystal ball that works. Mine is broken. All right, a lot of people are saying I'm feeling hesitant about the market, and my sense is that the hesitancy that we've been experiencing, especially over the past couple years, that's only going to be more inflamed right now. And so some people will definitely back off and say, hey, I'm not sure I want to do this. But others will be attracted by low rates too and say, I want to pull the trigger right now. Okay, regardless. Someone asked me on Twitter the other day, do you have any advice for me? What should I do? And I'm really careful about shooting on people. I just say, look, you need to be comfortable with a mortgage payment. All right. Markets don't always stay the same. But one additional thing I said is, really analyze your job. Just be sure that you're confident in your job right now too. I think that that's something clearly people are thinking about. Price cycles in Sacramento. I think that here's all your whenever the market was declining in red bars, we would expect the market to decline at some point. Okay. Now, like a good friend said recently, maybe this pandemic will exacerbate that and it will usher that in. We don't know. Okay, but here's the past few up cycles. You can see currently we've had 8.1 years of upward price growth. Previously it was 8.6 years, and before that it was 7.1 years. The market never behaves in the same way. Okay, the market moves for so many different reasons. Who would have thought that we'd be talking about a virus potentially affecting the real estate market? Right? Case in point. How long did the past few down cycles last? About 6 years, the past two ones, and the other one was brief. Now, when I adjust this other one for inflation, it actually looks closer to 6 years. So I would say that it's probably realistic to see a down cycle for 6 years or 5 years or whatever if we stay on that rhythm. When would that happen? It's anyone's guess, but there's a lot of uncertainty right now, isn't there? Okay. How do you convince someone that the market is okay? If you work in real estate and if you're asking this question, I would simply say you don't. Okay. Promising that the future is going to be okay is a dangerous thing for about anything because none of us can predict the future with certainty. All right. And so for buyers today, I would simply say look at your lifestyle and look at your wallet and say, does this make financial sense? Should I be moving right now? Okay. We all have wisdom with hindsight. And so if we had, the next 12 months of data in front of us and we knew exactly what the market was going to do in the economy, then, or the next 2 weeks, if this ends up being no big deal and there's not an increase in numbers for people who are getting sick, then maybe the market would, recover. But we don't know. And so that's why you just have to say, does it make sense for you to buy or not? Okay, closing advice. I'd say be patient because we need time. All right, we are simply going to need a matter of weeks and most likely months to really understand what the market's doing. All right, so there's no such thing as knowing everything at once right now. I'd say that realize that market conditions can change in an instant. Okay, this is March 16th that I'm sharing this video. I might say something completely different in 2 weeks from now. All right, be objective about data. So very important right now. There's a lot of ideas floating around, and I would just advise us all to let's listen to the metrics to help inform our narrative about the market. Okay, whether we're saying that it's normal or not, let's let the numbers influence what we're actually saying. Okay, know the numbers really well. I'll do my best to continue to put numbers out there. So that'll be on Facebook, on Twitter, on my blog. Okay, and so be ready for that. And I want to hear from you too. Be willing to learn and adapt in a new market. Okay, this is unprecedented what we're going through, and I think that's one reason why it feels uncertain. But you're gonna have to do new things. Okay, for me, I'm not inspecting properties physically right now as an appraiser. I'm offering my clients desktop appraisals, or maybe I'll drive by. I'm feeling even hesitant about that, but I'm asking some clients. One client tomorrow is taking pictures of a house, and I said, I need you to take 100 pictures on condition, on layout and deferred maintenance and upgrades. I need to understand these things, and so you need to take a ton of photos. Okay, I'm having another client on Wednesday who's going to take me through a luxury loft and who's going to be taking video, and we're going to do FaceTime, and we'll be on the phone as long as we need to for me to understand the property. Okay, I have to adapt. Look to listings instead of fixating on prices. We're going to see the trend start first in the listings and in sales closing, in the stories from escrows, in what agents are hearing from seller and buyer sentiment, consumer confidence. Eventually, all that stuff shows up in the stats. Okay, right now we have the trend that's happening. We just don't see it in the stats yet. Okay, remember, we don't know the future. All right, we just don't. I wish I did. I would probably be insanely rich if I did. Okay, be safe and cultivate peace. This is the last thing. I just say, no matter what you're doing, I mean, maybe it's just a good time to hit the pause button if you work in real estate. Have a slower pace. Be safe out there. Okay, I realize in many of our professions, we have to be out there mingling with people, but just make sure that you're actually being safe. That's all I'd say. And if you can cultivate peace, if you're freaking out online, just as a friend, I would say find ways to cultivate peace in your life because it's very scary on Twitter right now or on Facebook, and it's constant and incessant. And I would say we have time in front of us to really embrace with our families, and let's not let worry kind of squash the beauty that can happen with family members and the connection that can happen if we spend all this time freaked out and worried about money, and which obviously we have to consider. We're going to miss the bigger part of relationship. So this is me, sacramentoappraisalblog.com. I'm going to continue to post stuff. If you like this, give it a thumbs up. I hope this was helpful. I know this is long. I have a lot of thoughts to share. Please comment below, ask questions, but here we are at the beginning, and we'll see where this goes. Hey, thanks everyone. Appreciate it. Be safe.